Okay, this is the screencast presentation for the Cocos2d assignment. I used the Magic Ladder name for the game. It is basically a game that the purpose is to save a building from fire, from burning. This is the main scene. It also has a background effect sound. A help scene where it describes what is the goal of the game. It also lets you go back home, and here's the game. The game is basically fire will show up randomly, and the player will have to fire water. We also have a timer, so if I resist the fire in less than 20 seconds, you win. You got the ability to go back home, and I'm just gonna let it loose. If in less than 20 seconds the building or all the windows are on fire, then you lose the game. It's also background sound effects for the water and for the fire, and you also get the ability to go back home. Explain the code behind. Basically, the main scene is where all the mechanics happen. Besides the main scene, I have a water class which instantiates this sprite. I scale the picture for the water to the screen size ratio. Also for the fire, I do the same. It's basically a class that contains also an instance and a get sprite. Fire and water have the same logic behind player. It's also the same logic. This one has the screen size constant defined, and constructor and destroyer also get an instance of the player, and it's also the sprite. So I use a class for each one, for the player, the fire, and the water. This is the menu scene. Basically is a container for all the text sound on the front page on the main menu. So here, after initializing the main scene, you get obtain the size, the visible size of the screen and the origin size. I place the background. I place the background picture of the buildings. I scale so it can be supported on other screens. Then I add the background to the scene. Place the main title on the screen. It's just labeled TTF object, and the close button, which comes already out of the box when you start a new project, and a help button to go to the help scene. It uses a help button callback to go back, and here's the help button callback. So push this scene, and it creates the help scene. Hey, if you want to go back to the main scene, you also get a game button callback. This is this is where all the game is happening. It's gonna happen. And this is to close the application or finish the game. The help scene is the same. It's also a container that has a background and labels, and so I place the background on the scene, scale, and a title for it's a label object label. Also ability to go back home, and here is this is just a text that is on the background of the help scene. The main scene, I'm gonna show you the header for the main scene. This one has pretty much all the private and variables that are gonna be used through the game. I split the screen in 9 tiles, so each window of the building that is gonna be on fire is a tile. So That's why I have the current in fire, just to know what window's on fire. I get a fire count and a fire destroy when it collides with the water. I use these variables. Also, I got a it's game over. Put a line here, just plain. I initialize 0, and it means the game is going on. 1 is if you win, and 2 is you lose the game. And I use these variables for the timer. These are some Cocos2d variables that I need. I needed a vector to keep the fire, to keep water, and to keep which ones are no longer on fire. This is to build a resistance, so when the player has thrown enough water to the fire, and you can let the player know that he won or he saved the building. Some public variables and methods are the create a scene, initialize, a menu close callback to call the and go back to the menu, a menu home button callback, generate file. It's a function that we're gonna see later, and timer. This is to keep the timer and to display the timer. This is throw water. Every time the player throws water, I'll get a point where the water is being touched, and this is the touch begin function. I also implement an update to keep track of the time during the game. So this is the main scene. Through the tutorials I found defining the sound file names already on top is been suggested. And these are counters that I need through the game. I want to know, I'm given 20 seconds chances, 20 fire chances, 20 counts, so they can throw, the player can throw water up to 20 times before the 20 seconds pass by, and a fire count of 12. So I was increasing and decreasing these variables just to get a maybe a difficulty later on the game. These are public variables used through the game. I was exploring the gravity and word to give body density to the water and the fire, so I can see the collisions. But I end up using a different approach. I'm gonna show you that. This is the initialization. Basically, I get the screen size and the visible size. I split the screen in 3, so it'll be 9 title, width, and height. I load the background sound when the starts playing the game, and I place the background picture on the scene. The bricks is actually the building that is going to be on fire. I add the sprite to the scene. I also add the player doesn't move, it's just in a static position. I end up putting it at the bottom of the building. I wanted it to move, but due to the time, I just leave it in a center point, firing at the windows. And this is pretty much labels to keep the timer, the game over label, and if you win or lose. And this is the timer here. And this is the logic for the to go back button to go back home. Similar to what you saw on the help or menu scene. Here, initialize some variables to start the game. I reserve on the vector 9 positions for the fire. I give 100 bullets or 100 water bullets to the player, and no more. It's also 9 because I want to find out how many are no longer on fire. Start the timer. on the main initialization of the game. Here's some things that I was exploring and learning through the tutorials. It's just adding gravity and adding gravity war to the scene. And this is, I need to implement the touch listener event so I know when the player touch the screen where the bullet is gonna go, or the water bullet is gonna hit um, the fire. This is a scheduler to schedule the update event, and I run it every second, I guess. That's if I remember correctly. Um, and update timer is being called here, so that as the update start calling, the update timer gets called, and that's pretty much checking if the game is over or if the 20 seconds pass by. And if none of that happened, it's gonna keep displaying the time. It's not gonna display once you win or lose. This is a method to obtain the time in a string format. And update is always doing the checking on the game. If you win or lose, the labels will change on the screen. I stop all the effects, sound effects, and return back to the main scene. It's always all counting the fire count, just make sure it doesn't reach the max level. If it's always, every time it generates fire, it's gonna create the sound of fire showing on the fire sound effect. I'm gonna show you the generate fire before I keep going through the update. It's basically making a call to the fire class and assigning a sprite to it, to the position that randomly generate fire point returns. Generate fire point returns a point. It's basically a random function between 9 windows, including the door. So I call it tile location. So every time it finds a random number between 0 and 9 or 0 and 8, it will return a position where it's gonna paint the fire. I know that's probably a better way to display this or performance wise, but just for the easy of the game, I just find 8 points on the windows that is already divided into 9, and return a point. Once the point is returned, I get the sprite and put it on the scene. So again, the update is always checking on that you haven't reached the max fire count. The game will be over if it reaches the max fire count. And I stop all the sounds, I stop all the sound effects, and I stop the background music. This is to check for collision. So when you fire the water, I'm also making a call to the water class and putting a sprite on the scene. But this is doing an animation, so it's actually going and checking the position of if the water once animates and goes through the fire, it's gonna find if it intersects. So it's checking on the two sprites bounding boxes, and if they collide, then the fire gets destroyed and the water gets also removed from the scene. That's for collisions. Another part I wanted to show you will be let's see if I can show down. Touch began. Here is where the water sound effect. Okay, this is what I want to show you. When the touch began, I called the function throw water. This